besties, how are you guys doing? Welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, my name is Ifoma. I'm a fashion designer and a pattern dressmaker. Today we're going to be making children's wear. I'm beginning to find this making children's wear very interesting actually. You know, just showing all those details, those bows and everything, and how they just come out so cute. Yeah, so if you want to see how this went down, don't mind me. If you want to see how this went down, please stay tuned to the end of this video. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, like, share, and of course subscribe if you haven't. Click on the thumb bell to get notified when I post a new video. The link to my Instagram page is going to be in the description box below, so do check that out. Without further ado, let's jump right into this tutorial.
Here are some of the measurements you're going to be needing for this tutorial, and this is just basically a picture of the measurements. So here's the fabric we're going to be using. We have our satin and our lining, we have our net fabric. So basically I'm going over to fold my pattern paper into two, and once I fold it this way, I'm going to use my paper tape to tape that down. On the top line, I went in by 5 inches, which is half of our shoulder measurement. And to get our back neck width, I went down by 1.5 inches and 2.5 inches consecutively. And for the width, I went in by 3 inches. With the help of our French curve, I'm basically just going to be connecting the lines together, both the front and the back pattern, to the 3 inches we have over there. For our shoulder to chest measurements, we're going to be using 5 inches, and I just marked that down. I connect my lines with the help of my ruler, and basically I move forward to measure from our shoulder line to our waistline, which is like our half cut. So next up, what I did was I picked between my chest and my tummy which one is bigger. I picked the bigger measurement and divided it by 4, and I'm going to mark that on the chest line and also on the tummy or on the waistline. And with the help of my ruler, I'm going to be connecting that in place. So I came down by 0.5, which is half of an inch for the shoulder slope, and with the help of my ruler, I'm just basically going to connect that. I went in with my French curve to connect my armhole. This is just to get my armhole shape from my chest line to my shoulder line. Just before I cut everything through, I went in with my tape just to ensure my measurement is in place, if my armhole is not going to be too tight. And once I confirm that, I'm going in with my scissors to just continue cutting out my pattern piece. So you guys know your pattern piece is on fold, and I'm just basically going to be slashing that into 2 over there, just like in the video, and voila, we have 2 pieces. One is going to be for the front and the other one is for the back, and I'm going in to cut off the extra neck piece we have over there with my scissors. So this is going to be our front pattern piece. I mean, this is a very simple pattern to draft, to be honest, and it's more like freehand to me. I don't know, you guys let me know what you think, if this is freehand or not. Well, next up, I'm just going to cut my satin, and I'm pinning my front piece to my satin fabric. And once I'm done with that, I'm just basically going to cut out my scissors. So I added half of an inch allowance, or you could add 1 cm allowance. Okay, so for this side, I added 1 inch allowance, and this is just to create extra ease. If in future the baby girl adds weight and she still wants to work this dress, she can. On the armhole, I added half of an inch. We're still going to be repeating the same process on the back piece. The only difference is we're going to be adding 1 inch zip allowance on the back, center back. So once you're done, you should have something that looks like this. And I'm moving forward with my lining. I'm basically just going to cut in whatever I have on my satin fabric on the lining. After cutting our satin and our lining, we're going over to a sewing machine. I add stay to the lining fabric. This is just to give it weight and firm. And I'm moving forward to join it shoulder to shoulder. So I move forward to our satin fabric, and we're basically just going to be placing two, which is net, on our satin fabric. So I just folded the two fabric into two, so I have two layers of net fabric on top of my satin bodice. And I'm moving forward with my scissors, just basically to trim off the excess fabric. Also put this in mind, you're going to repeat this step for the back piece, which is the back bodice. So we're going to repeat the same joining process of joining our satin fabric, also shoulder to shoulder, which is back shoulder to the front shoulder. So done with all that joining, you can go ahead and give the shoulder line a good press, both for the lining and for satin fabric. I went in to join both our lining to our satin fabric on the neckline. So I'm going to be joining the two pieces together. I'm just basically pinning, where we're going to be stitching down on, which is our neckline area. And once I'm done pinning all of that, I'm going to be leaving our zip allowance, which is 1 inch. So what this means is I'm not going to be sewing on our 1 inch. So when I'm starting my sewing, I'm skipping that 1 inch, which is for our zip allowance, and just sewing the rest. And I'm going to do this for the other side as well. With my scissors just to create a little snipe around the neck. So I flip this like so, and I'm going to be still skipping a 1 inch zip allowance and sewing very close as possible on our lining fabric. So note that this sewing we're doing is still around the neckline. Done with that, I'm moving forward to my armhole, and I'm basically just sewing by my sewing allowance. So I'm sure that you guys noticed that the right side of your fabric will be facing the right side of your lining. Done with that, I'm also going to create little snipes and just cut my excess thread. So once you're done with that, you can now turn this inside out, through the shoulder. Just in case you've been seeing my lips moving, I've been vibing to music, like. So I went ahead to give this a good press, and this is what we have. I already joined one side, and I'm basically just going to be showing you guys how I will be joining the other side. I'm going to open this up like so and join this side by side, which is right side facing each other. So don't forget, when you're stitching the side, you're going to be stitching by your sewing allowance. If you added half-inch sewing allowance, remember you're going to be stitching a half-inch. If you added 1 inch, you're going to be stitching by 1 inch. And I'm just basically going to snipe that place just so we could have a flawless armhole looking like this. I went ahead with my measuring tape just to check if I'm on the right track, and yes, I was. I also gave this a good press. The side seam, I opened it up and use my iron to just press that in place. So I'm going to be cutting a full circle. I do have a video on how you could achieve this, cut out a full circle, which is going to be either up there, or I'm going to put it in the description box below so you can check that out. So I'm just placing my lining in place. This is my lining fabric I'm going to be using for this, and I'm measuring out the length of how I want my underskirt or under lining to be. As you can see, I made the exact cutout again, but with a net fabric, and I'm going to be slashing that open. So this part is going to be for the lower part of this dress. So the length of this is your desired length, and the width is 7 inches. So you're going to be gathering all this together like in place. I have 3 pieces of 7 inches, and I do have a video on how you could do this easily. I'm going to add that in the description box below because I've done this method multiple times. So I have 3 pieces of 2 fabric together, and I'm gathering them with my hand. This is basically the needle and thread method, and if you want a better video, like I said, it's going to be in the description box below because I've done this multiple times. So it's just like me doing the same thing over again. So, or if you have a gathered foot, you could use that, but it won't give you the effect that you want, this full effect. So I'm going forward to pin the satin piece to the lower bodice that we gathered, and after pinning that, going with my sewing machine, and I'm basically just going to be stitching that in place. all of that, you should have something that looks like this. And we're moving forward to our full circle net we cut out earlier on. I was just going to be slashing that open. We do have another gathers we did, but this is a shorter length, and this is, you know, you're going to minus 5 inches from the initial length. This is also a 7 yard gathered together like this, and we're going to be pinning this to our lower bottom of our full circle. After pinning this, head on to our sewing machine and we basically just stitch that in place. So I'm just going ahead to, pull out the gathers thread that we have in there, and once we're done with that, we're going over to weave our lining. After weaving this, we're going to take the lining and the circular net we cut out. We take the two pieces together and we're just basically going to pin this in place. I went ahead to change my foot, so I'm changing this to a zipper foot, which will enable me fix my zipper. So for the record, this is not an invisible zip, so this is just a regular long length zip. So after fixing my zip, I'm going over to join my lining together. So I'm doing this joining right side of the lining facing each other. So I just go over to change my zipper foot to my regular foot, and I'm just going to be stitching these two pieces together. So once I was done with that, I went ahead to also weave the part I sewed, and this is just to avoid it from fraying. So we switched from our regular foot to the zipper foot, and we're basically going to be finishing up our zip. So because our zip is actually a long zip, we're going to be stitching that end, and we're going to be cutting off the excess. Moving forward to creating the bow, we do have a long length of 60 inches. Over to the width of this, we have 18 inches, and to the length we have 9 inches. And for this one that we have 60 inches of length, we have 4.5 inches for the width. And basically we're starting off by sewing this like so, just with a curve. This is going to be our band. So basically this long 60 inches rope you see over there is going to be for our band slash rope. So I ironed a stay on this, and now we're going over to our sewing machine. I'm going to be sewing the 4 corners of this. I'm going to be leaving just a tiny bit of opening so we could turn our bow piece inside out. So note that your opening should not be more than 2 inches, because you don't want to have this very big opening that when you're stitching that it will be looking wonky. I'm just notching the tips of this just before I turn this inside out. Proceed to close up our opening. So now you're just going to get the center of your band, and you're going to pin that in place. I'm also going to be pinning the side, because the side is the most important part we're going to be joining with our sewing machine. So we're not going to be joining that part we pin in the center front. We're just going to be joining the sides together. also doing this with the help of our sewing machine. I'm going forward to sew the little band of our bow, and the width of this is 2 inches and the length is 5 inches. So I'm going to close this up like so, and we're just basically going to be sewing at 1 cm, or you could sew at half of an inch, and we're going to be turning this inside out. Successfully done with that, I move forward to get a strip of thread that I rolled up multiple times, and I'm going to be using this to snatch our bow. So we're doing this in between of the bow. So you're going to use this rope to go multiple times around the bow, and then you just tie that in place. So once you're done with that, this little piece we sewed up together, we're going to be putting that in between our bow like so, and I'm just basically going to my sewing machine to sew that piece together. And once I'm done sewing that, I'm going over to cut off my excess with my scissors, like basically the parts we're not going to be needing. And once I cut that off, I'm going to be turning this inside out. So right now I'm just going over to tack the front band to the waistline. Done with that, we're going to be placing our bow at the back, and I'm just basically placing this just to get a visual representation of what I want this to look like, and I'm pinning that in place. So I move forward to just my rope, just tie my rope and see how this look at the back. So I'm going to be stitching this side with a needle and thread. So if you stitch one side, the other side has to be open, so I'm using a pressing button over at the other side. This will enable us to open and be able to open and close that part of the bow. After fixing the pressing button on both sides, I'm going over to pin my label in place. So once you're done with that, I went further to stitch the inside of our dress. This is not necessary, like you could skip this process, but I just want to have this form of closure between the lining and the satin. So I'm going in with my needle and thread just to create the effect I want. Here's what the outfit looks like on the little princess, and it doesn't require a basket. So if you follow this method, you won't have to wear a basket. Thank you guys for watching. See you in my next tutorial.